Across the world, many big cities are getting a sinking feeling. Hi there, everyone. It's Jeff, and this is Plain English, episode number 797 on Thursday, August 14th, 2025. Every episode of Plain English tells a story, usually something going on in the world. And for many people, what's going on is below their feet. Their cities. Even the city where I live, their cities are sinking just a little bit every year, but that can cause big problems. That's today's story. You can find the full transcript, the fast version of the audio, a quiz, exercises, translations, and more, all related to this episode at plainenglish.com/797. That is thanks to JR, the producer. plainenglish.com/797. Before we start today's story, I'd just like to remind you that the podcast is just one part of how we can help you upgrade your English skills. At plainenglish.com, you can make faster progress with active learning strategies. You can take quizzes, do activities, listen to the fast version of the audio, watch video workshops, practice what you learn, and even join a live call with JR and me. It's all about helping you build your skills to become a better, more confident English speaker. Sound good? Go to plainenglish.com to start your free 14-day trial today. Now, let's jump into today's story. All across the world, major cities are sinking. It's happening in nearly 150 urban areas on every continent except Antarctica. You've probably heard that rising sea levels threaten cities and towns near coasts, but this is a completely different threat. The sinking is known as subsidence, and it happens when land compresses due to shifts underground. Satellite data show that many large cities around the world are sinking by a few centimeters a year. That might not sound like a lot, but it can cause a lot of problems. It's been called a slow motion crisis. Start with buildings. When the ground shifts under a building, even just a one-story house, it can affect the foundation and stability. Homeowners see cracks in their walls and foundations. Taller buildings can tilt to one side. Public infrastructure is also at risk. Railways, bridges, and long-distance pipelines can all be compromised if the land underneath them is sinking. In some extreme cases, cracks can form in roadways, putting people's safety at risk. And subsidence can make things worse in areas that are already prone to flooding. Why then is land underneath so many cities sinking? In many cases, the answer comes from an increasing demand for groundwater. Groundwater collects in pockets beneath the surface of the earth. These spaces are called aquifers, and they're a major source of fresh water. Wells tap into these spaces and pull up fresh water for drinking, manufacturing, and agriculture. The aquifers are gradually refilled when rainwater seeps back underground. But as cities grow, two factors work against aquifers. The first is that demand for water grows. More people in a city means higher demand for fresh water. Cities take more water out of the aquifers as they grow. The other factor is the increase in paved area. The more pavement on the surface, the fewer ways rainfall has to seep back into the ground and refill the aquifers. As a result, aquifer levels in many cities remain persistently low, leaving behind underground gaps where water used to be. When there's a gap like that, the spaces under the earth can compress, and everything on the surface shifts downward just a little bit. In many cases, this problem is irreversible. Once aquifers are compacted, they lose their ability to store water in the future. That's not all. In heavily developed areas, the weight of big buildings can press down on the soil, further compacting it over time. About a third of the subsidence in Shanghai, for example, is due to the weight of the city's enormous skyscrapers. The fast-growing city of Tianjin in northeast China is one of the most quickly sinking places on the planet. Parts of the city sank nearly 19 centimeters each year between 2014 and 2020. When subsidence caused large cracks to appear in roadways a few years later, thousands of residents had to be evacuated from high-rise apartments nearby. In coastal cities, subsidence compounds the effects of rising sea levels, making floods more frequent and more severe. Indonesia's capital of Jakarta is a perfect example. It's home to more than 11 million people. The city has seen dramatic growth in the past 50 years, and it relies heavily on groundwater extraction for drinking water. 40% of the city now sits below sea level, and some parts are sinking by as much as 11 centimeters each year. Flooding was a constant threat even before the sea levels were rising and the city was sinking. Dozens of residents have died in floodwaters, and more than 200,000 have been displaced by floods. The problem is only becoming more severe. One of the worst cases of subsidence is in the city and suburbs of Tehran, the capital of Iran. Tehran is a rapidly expanding city without many sources of fresh water nearby. And it's also in a desert, so there's precious little rainfall to begin with. Subsidence can vary by neighborhood. In some parts of Tehran, it has reached 35 centimeters per year. Several multi-story buildings have had to be abandoned. Homeowners have put their houses up for sale at bargain prices due to foundational issues. Pictures show fissures opening up in the earth. Bus routes have had to be changed. Railways have been cracked. Schools in one city were evacuated because of fears of collapse. Some residents say they have to repair doorways and windows every year. Historical and heritage sites are also at risk. Not all cities are losing ground. In some places, smart policies and investment have helped slow or even stop subsidence. Tokyo has managed to stabilize much of its subsidence by regulating groundwater pumping and installing a complex water management system. That system pulls fresh water from 2 rivers nearby. It's an effective solution, but not every place has 2 nearby rivers to serve its freshwater needs. Mexico City, Venice, Bangkok, and Houston have all been able to slow or stop the rate of subsidence through a combination of policies like restrictions on groundwater pumping and engineering projects. Green space can help preserve aquifers and slow subsidence. Parks, grassy areas, and wetlands can capture rainwater and help refill aquifers. Replacing paved surfaces with absorbent natural materials can also help prevent flooding. But this is difficult in rapidly growing cities with limited budgets for parks and sustainable building materials. There are proposals in both Tehran and Jakarta to move the capital city. That seems like a long shot to me, especially if they just take all the existing problems and move them to a new place. And Egypt has found that it's not easy to move a capital city. We first talked about that in episode 437. They're building a whole new capital city, but at enormous cost, and it's unclear how many people will be able to live there. By the way, at the beginning of the episode, I said cities are getting a sinking feeling. A sinking feeling is an expression in English. It's what you feel in your stomach when you know something is wrong, like when you've made a big mistake or when something bad is going to happen. You get that sinking feeling. All right, that's all for today's episode. Great job as always. This, again, was number 797. The full episode resources are at plainenglish.com/797. We'll be back next week with 2 more topics. See you then. Listen up if you speak Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, German, French, Italian, Japanese, Polish, or Turkish. One of the most frustrating things about listening and reading in a second language is being confused by unfamiliar words or phrases. When you listen to plain English, or when you read the transcript, you probably encounter some words you don't know. When that happens, you have a few options. You can stop the audio, go look up the definition, then return to the episode, find your place, and press play again, but that's exhausting. Or you can just skip it and be confused. That's no fun either. But what if you could see the translation of the word into your language instantly without having to stop the audio, without having to look anything up? Well, you can at plainenglish.com. For each episode, we translate about 100 words and phrases from English to 9 languages: Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, German, French, Italian, Japanese, Polish, and Turkish. And we highlight those words in blue. All you have to do is hover your mouse over the highlighted word, and you'll see the translation instantly. It works great on mobile too. It really makes listening a lot more satisfying, and it's a great way to expand your vocabulary in English. The best way to see these translations is to sign up for a free 14-day trial at plainenglish.com. During your trial, you can read as many transcripts as you like, all with the translations into your language. So sign up for your free trial today at plainenglish.com.